By order of the Peaky Blinders.
Anyway, we're Peaky Blinders. We're not scared of coppers.
That's right.
If they come for us, we'll cut them a smile each.
My word to who? To a Peaky Blinder?
Arthur Shelby of the Peaky Blinders.
Thomas, you're a bookmaker, a robber, a fighting man. You're not a fool.
Did you know they were going to do it before they did it? Because that's someone who's in charge, isn't it? And who knows before it happens.
I know what I know. If you don't know, then you don't fucking know, do you?
Welcome to PBP. That's right, baby, a Peaky Blinders podcast. I'm your guy, Jamie G, Esquire the Fifth, MD, some say Master of Surgical Arts. I'm here with the main man, my co-host, Magnum Mills, and we're going to break down the latest episode of Peaky Blinders. And Mills, man, I'm going to be honest with you here, brother. I'm always looking forward to the next episode of Peaky, but after this last episode, dude, it ended with the death of Ruby. I was a little anxious about this one, man. I had a feeling this one was going to be tough.
You know, and as I kind of reflected on what we talked about last week, I think that's kind of what we talked about a time jump, because I think just subconsciously, neither one of us wanted to actually, deal with the aftermath of the death of Ruby. Because, anytime a child dies, even in fiction, it's like some serious shit. And so I felt pretty much the same way as you going into this one. So let's just get the preamble done, hammer out the details, dive right into this mother. And this was episode 4 of season 6, entitled Sapphire, originally aired Sunday, March 21st, 2022 on BBC One. It was directed by Anthony Byrne. He's also directed every episode of season 5 and will be directing all episodes of season 6. And it was written by creator and showrunner Stephen Knight. And just a reminder here that we will be spoiling all aired episodes of Peaky Blinders. Jamie G, that's it, brother. Why don't you start walking us through this episode?
If there was a time jump this week, it was only a couple of days or so as we open with the scene we've all been dreading since last week, Ruby's funeral. We follow the Shelby family as they accompany Ruby's casket to a gypsy funeral. Tommy nervously removes his typewritten notes. He approaches Arthur to say that he cannot say the words that he has written, and he'd like Arthur to do so. Arthur trembles and apologizes to Tommy, telling him that he cannot do it. Tommy is forced to speak, and he opens by saying that while we could have afforded a gold coffin, and Ruby surely deserves one, they did not do so because gold doesn't work. Tommy reminisces about Ruby as Lizzie struggles to hold it together. Tommy vows that they will do good in order to honor her memory. Tommy asks Jeremiah to light the funeral pyre, and Lizzie finally breaks down, begging them not to burn her. Tommy and Lizzie have one last moment with Ruby. Tommy tells her coffin that the devils who did this will pay, and Lizzie asks what he means. Tommy leaves without answering, and the Shelby family shares a hug as the fire is lit. As everyone watches the flames, Tommy turns away and departs by himself.
And then we finally get the title card of the episode. Like, man, that was a lot to absorb right there. And I think the first thing that really stuck out to me was the talk about the gold. You know what I mean? Because that's come back around now. And it's kind of also works on the metaphorical level, because that's what Tommy has been doing. He's chasing the gold, the power, the money. Now he's kind of saying like that doesn't work. So what does that leave him? I guess right now he's leaning more into his gypsy upbringing and instincts there, but I don't think that's working out for him either. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously some real heavy stuff here again. Great acting. This is now the second one of these gypsy funerals we've seen this season, right? I mean, I'm kind of worried we might see a third one before the end of it now, given the how this episode ends. Obviously we're spoiling everything here, but I think when now that that, when you go back and think about this opening scenes, it leans a little bit of weight, just because we might be watching one of these for Tommy Shelby sooner or later.
Yeah, we really might. I mean, God, man, just an incredible opening scene there. I guess, Magnum Mills, this is a good time to talk about, because everybody wants to talk like they got something to say. But did we forget about Finn? I mean, he had to be at the funeral, right? I mean, I was trying to spot him, but I couldn't be sure. I mean,
I freeze framed. He had to. There's just no, unless he's dead or in jail, right? Like, I guess out of the country. I think Tommy does say at one point at the big meeting it's been 4 days. So I guess maybe if he was in America or something, I have to assume Finn was there. We're just gonna again because dude, they're paying the dude. He's in the main cast. You know, he's this young, handsome dude. Like, it's not like they're like they forget about Finn so much they just bring in another Shelby. It's like, oh, we need another Shelby. Finn? Who? No. We got other guy. We don't want to use Finn. So sorry, Finn. Even the show seems to be forgetting about you.
Absolutely, Magnum Mills. Next, we find ourselves at a gypsy camp in the forest. Tommy approaches asking for Evadne Barwell. When a woman says that's her, Tommy pulls out his gun and says that he's here on behalf of the Blue Sapphire. He opens fire, gunning her down as well as several other men. As the gypsies retreat, Tommy smashes his gun against a tree, breaks down, completely sobbing. Just crazy scene, Magnum Mills.
You know, and that was kind of, you know, I wanted it first because the tactical part of my brain is I'm like, dude, you just like, aren't these words they're going to come back? You're really going to smash your gun or whatever? But, you know, in retrospect, I think he's just realizing deep down that this isn't going to help. You know, that this isn't going to, no matter how hard he wants it to, this isn't going to bring Ruby back. And he just shot these people, you know, even if he believes deep down the woman deserved it or whatever, you know, those other guys didn't deserve it. And, you know, I think he's just kind of lost here. And that's, you know, you don't kind of know what else to say. Just again, just fantastically well acted and everything. And just, you know, you believe the breakdown totally. And then just, you know, kind of just hard to watch almost, just very good, just, you know, just very incredibly sad and, you know, moving in a way that you don't really want to be moved because it's, you know, again, the loss of a child. It's just tough to empathize, you know, it sucks. There's no other way to say it.
It really does, Magnum Mills. And I think that's an astute point you made with him realizing as he's breaking down that, man, just coming up with a straight, it's not just a pistol he shows up with. Like we're talking about a Tommy gun, bro. And I mean, he just mows her down and everyone else in his way there. And you could tell he got no joy out of that. That didn't solve anything. And I think that was a great point you made. One little attention to detail here that I really like is he's breaking down and banging that gun and breaking it on the tree. You start to see the bark of the tree come undone. And that was really symbolic and a really cool little detail that I enjoyed in that scene.
Yeah, and I guess now the one thing you say is they can't at the end of the episode put up that little message that says like no trees were harmed in the making of this production. So, you know, I don't know, you might have lost a couple people on that one. So, you know, we'll deal with it. Maybe it was a fake tree or something like that. The tree will be okay. It'll grow back. So if this isn't enough, we opened with a funeral of a child and then basically a massacre in the woods. So then what do we do to top that off? We see Tommy, he's driving, he's still in the woods. He stops near a little house and Esme gets in the car. Tommy gives her a bag of gold and says their business is concluded. Esme says, not quite yet. She tells Tommy that before he left for the war, he slept with a girl named Zelda at the Appleby Fair and she became pregnant and gave birth to Tommy's son. We see a boy nearby brushing a horse and Tommy looks at him with a shocked expression. Esme knows enough details that Tommy believes that she's telling the truth. Esme says that his name is Duke and she brought them both here on purpose. She says that his mother is dead and Duke is a low-level thief at a carnival and he wants more in life. Esme offers to send him to Tommy in exchange for more gold. The camera cuts away before Tommy answers Esme. And again, I mean, for more gold.
For more gold, bro.
Gold doesn't work, right? I mean, like, is he buying family here? You know, there's something to be said here, other than also the fact that this is, from a narrative standpoint, one of the things this feels kind of like something that TV shows do late in the run or whatever. Like all of a sudden, we've already did it with Michael, kind of like this is another kind of Shelby we didn't know about. It's stretching it a little bit here. You know, I really hope this one pays off and not just is a backdoor way to set up a future spinoff series or something.
But right now, that's really all it feels like it could be. I mean, I wasn't a fan of the Duke storyline here because again, dude, there's only 2 more episodes in the season, you know, series finale here. So I mean, I get there's plans of a movie and all that, but it just seemed like it wasn't really needed. But I did like the gold commentary. And Lizzie tells
real quick
Tommy,
before we go on, just a little bit gun to your Johnson here. Is that the last time we see Esme?
Tough call. I'm gonna say no.
I'll go yes, just to be contrarian. I think she just sends him along, like just like here he is. He just shows up with like a note pinned to his shirt or whatever.
It's my first day of school. We'll find out, Magnum Mills. After that scene, we're back at the Shelby household, and Lizzie tells Tommy that she knows where he went. As Tommy tries to talk about setting up institutions to research and fight consumption, Lizzie asks him if the women he killed had children. Tommy says that 10,000 children die every year, Lizzie. Lizzie begs him to go to sleep and asks, what is this good that you will become? Tommy walks right up to Lizzie and tells her that he killed 1 woman and 3 men. Lizzie gets up to leave, and on her way out, she tells Tommy that the doctors from the sanatorium are trying to get a hold of him.
And it's kind of one of those things. It's a little bit like a Chekhov's gun here. Like as soon as you hear the doctors are trying to get a hold, it's one of those things like, all right, here it is in the first act, and then you see the letter later, and it's definitely like, oh boy. And I think that's going to be one of the criticisms here is this show already had, before anything that's set up in this episode, it had enough going on that you were wondering how they were going to finish it all off. And they just like, they're already on the unicycle. They got a couple bowling pins. They got a chainsaw going. And you're like, great, let's light that all on fire and throw in a bear cub. I trust that the show can pull it off, but man, they're adding a lot of moving parts late in the game here, it feels like.
Oh, yes, they are. And this is a major one. We'll obviously talk more about it as the episode evolves, but this was
great scene. I mean,
great scene.
Lizzie,
and this was one of a couple. Yes, I mean, Tommy and Lizzie are really dialed in, and this is one of a few scenes in this episode where both of them are together in what leads to be an outstanding scene, filled with emotion, filled with anger, filled with hurt. I mean, this is just really well done from an acting standpoint, Magnum Mills.
Yeah, and I find it interesting too because obviously they share this child, this daughter, but they're also both dealing with their grief in like 2 completely different ways, kind of. And I think it's an interesting thing if you pay attention when you walk in, Lizzie's sitting at this dinner table, and there's all this food or whatever. It's all still there. The glass has obviously been drank a bunch. There's a bunch of, cigarette butts in the ashtray. So it's like, obviously, like she sat down to eat dinner and it's just been sitting there drinking and smoking, just sitting there, not eating, just sitting there. And, it's a shame because it feels like they're both lost. And you see a couple times they try to hold hands and everything here. And it seems like while they want to reach out to each other, they can't really make like a deep connection that really helps them in any kind of meaningful way, even though they want to.
No, it's absolutely tragic. It's a tragic love story wrapped up in all this other crazy shit, Magnum Mills. I mean, this episode is just filled with really good scenes, but they're all pretty much really sad.
I mean, I think we're coming up to maybe, I think there were 2 scenes that weren't as sad. And you want to take this one or would you like me to?
Go for it, buddy.
And as, Lizzie's leaving or whatever, she tells Tommy somebody's here. Tommy goes down to the basement, turns on the lights, and we see Arthur. He's basically kind of trying to sleep on the floor while he waits for a wine glass to slowly fill up from a barrel that's almost empty. Again, a little bit of a metaphor alert there with the empty barrel, almost empty anyways. And he says to Tommy, as Tommy sits down, has a smoke, he says, Tommy, the junk, Tom, it fucks up your mind. And we see that he's just still really struggling with trying to, to kick his main habits here. Obviously, he's still having a little bit of drink, but he's trying to stay off everything else. And then Tommy tells Arthur that he was already fucked up, and he's been fucked up since he was a kid. Tommy recalls a fight between the 2 when they were younger. I think Tommy was 9 and Arthur was 11. And he wonders that when he had Arthur on the ground, if he hit him in the head one too many times. Tommy goes over then, he sits down on the floor next to Arthur, and he takes a sip of wine from the glass that's now full. It's the first alcohol he's had in years. Tommy admits that after losing Polly and Ruby, he stumbled and crashed. They talk about back when they were kids living on a boat. And Tommy admits that when he thinks about it, he knows that Arthur let him win that fight he was talking about. And that ever since then, Arthur has wanted him to win in everything else. Tommy tells Arthur that he will stop using because that's what the family needs him to do. He says that they are now at the end of the tunnel. There's only a few yards to go. After that, Tommy says, Arthur, you can go about changing your ways. And Tommy's going to change the fucking world.
Man, oh man, Magnum Mills. This was an incredible scene in an episode that was filled with incredible scenes. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think we got to cut in right here because it's our boy, Arthur. And we got to talk about all about Arthur. All right, let's just think about him so far in this episode. So far, we've seen him break down at the funeral, can't give the speech. I'll tell you what, dude, the actor playing Arthur is doing a phenomenal job playing this guy who's just a beaten down man, dope junkie, trying to quit but can't, emotional train wreck. I don't know if he's just overcome with losing his niece and watching his brother, who he loves more than anyone, bury his child, or if he's detoxing, or if he's using. or all of them. I mean, this was a pretty crazy scene initially. And then we just got that scene with Tommy and Arthur in the basement. And I got to say, Magnum Mills, that scene to me was as good as it gets. As a guy who's got brothers, it was so well done. He sees him in there struggling. Arthur's all fucked up, rolling around on the floor, and Tommy goes and he sits down calmly. And he starts by getting his attention saying, "No, I beat your ass." And Arthur's saying, "No, that was a fight. That was a match. We tied." And he ends it by coming closer to him and telling him that it's because he let him win. I mean, just an incredible way to build up his brother. Tommy will be the reason that Arthur gets clean. It's not going to be Linda. It's not going to be anything else. I really believe that. And, so far for our guy, Arthur, great episode, right? I mean, it's limited, but it's great. It's not exactly Arthur on Tokyo beating people up, but it's good.
I mean, I will say at the end of the episode, we do see him break back into the Chinese joint, fight some dudes off with got the table and chairs and steal literally as much drugs as he can carry. I don't know how that'll turn out. I will say overall, I think Arthur has been a pretty, I try not to really read a lot of other stuff as to not get influenced here, but just kind of going through things that are really, you see a couple reviews or whatever, and a lot of people really just aren't happy with Arthur this year, in just because we all want that fun Arthur. Remember, Arthur would just come in the room and he would just be that dude, like just come in and just change the whole tenor of the situation. And now we talk about it, he seems like weak and frail and lost and scared, and and I think it's all very well done. It makes a lot of sense, both from what the show wants to do and for his character arc. I mean, you can only do these kind of drugs in those kind of quantities for so long. It's just how this thing works. He was either going to die or detox. I don't know what other options there really are, and it's just hard to watch. And it sucks. It's great. It makes sense. It's well done, but it's not particularly fun. So I do get why people would feel that way, because especially if you haven't really sucked a lot of time into kind of these long running prestige type TV shows, especially when the worlds get bigger and bigger and they have all this stuff, it tends to get like this a little bit, I think. And here it's just, these characters all going down a dark path, and Peaky does seem like the show where it's not guaranteed that this is all going to turn out to be, sunshine and roses for everybody.
Yeah, no, this has been I would say this is overall has been a pretty dark season, bro. Like, it hasn't been, as fun and great as we're rooting for it to be for the characters we love. I mean, they're going through it. They really are, each and every one of them in their own way. Anyways, Arthur, we love you. No matter what you're doing, keep being Arthur. Magnum Mills, next we see multiple cars pull up to the Shelby estate, and it's time for the big meeting with Jack and Mosley. They all sit down at the table and wait for Tommy to arrive. Before heading down to the meeting, Tommy talks with Charlie on the stairs and tells him, go to bed. Charlie says he can't sleep because when he closes his eyes, he sees Ruby. As they wait for Tommy, Diana tells another one of her horrifying fascist stories. It was disgusting. Captain Swing, the woman from the IRA, then sings an IRA rebel song, and she's still singing it as Tommy enters the room and approaches out of the darkness.
And again, that's just shot so great. He's in the darkness with those blue eyes and everything. Just an amazing shot. And then we get a little montage while she's singing the song. We go over to Ada's house and we see a brick get thrown through the window. It's a group of Nazis outside who want all of the non-whites gone from the neighborhood. Ada goes outside to confront the Nazis. No hesitation, pulls a gun on them. They took off. They run away. Again, like as we referenced, we see Arthur at the opium den, breaks into the joint, forcibly takes a bunch of drugs, and then we see him collapse in an alley. We don't know if he took the drugs, if he's just tired, running away, whatever. Finally, we see Lizzie go to the stables. She visits Ruby's horse and sobs into its mane, and the montage ends, and it's back to the meeting.
And Magnum Mills, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the montage. I'm a montage guy. They used to call me Mickey Montage, but I think if there's one bit of criticism I have in this episode, feels like there was one montage too many. I think I counted 3 or 4, including small ones here. And it felt like they just kind of went to it a lot. It's fine. It worked. I'm not being hypercritical or anything, but it just felt like there was kind of maybe one too many montages here for me. After that, Magnum Mills, it's finally business time, and everybody lays out what they're offering and what they want. Jack Nelson says that he has the ear of the President of the United States. Mosley says that they do indeed have things that they'd like him to whisper into the president's ear. Major Swing, well, she says that she can move her people from republicanism to fascism with just a nudge. Mosley indicates that when the time comes, Tommy will resign as a socialist and run as an independent. Jack asks Tommy if he truly believes in the cause. Tommy says that he's here 4 days after the death of his child. That's not enough for Mosley, who wants Tommy to prove it physically. In order to do so, Tommy joins Mosley in giving a Nazi salute. Jack strikes a deal to provide weapons to the IRA and tells Tommy that Boston is now officially open for the transportation of his merchandise. As the meeting breaks up, it looks like Tommy is staring down Jack. He's actually not. He's staring at Ruby's chair. Tommy abruptly leaves and goes outside and shoots a gun into the air while screaming at the top of his lungs. And not just any gun, another Tommy gun.
Were they named after Tommy Shelby? I don't know, but maybe in this universe, I wouldn't mind it. I think this was a fantastic scene. Everything about it's kind of shot in a way that there are these kind of light, the very lit table, but everything around them is basically pitch black. In the way the camera moves, it doesn't cut like it normally does. It moves basically in a circle around the table, even though, if I remember right, it's a rectangular table. It's not a circular table, but and it swings. And these are like one-liners back and forth with each other. Usually in Peaky, you get these more complex lines of dialogue where they, a character talks for a hot minute when they begin to speak. And this is just like, no, I have this. No, I have this. No, you have that. In any other episode, I think it would have been one of the more comedic parts of Peaky Blinders, that we like to have that levity, but just given the whole kind of pall that hangs over it with the death of Rudy and just where Tommy is right now, it's a great scene, but it just kind of makes you realize that in that whole scene, Tommy barely says anything. Usually he would be kind of the one getting in some good lines or whatever like that. And he's just kind of letting his plan play out and just trying to basically get through the meeting, because God knows when the last time he actually slept was.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows, Magnum Mills. Fantastic scene. I'm not going to lie. This next scene kind of worked its way up to my runner-up just because I loved how just stone cold it was. But we go back to Ada's house, where her son, Carl, seems pretty sympathetic to the Nazi cause. Ada shuts him down real quick by reminding him that he's half gypsy. And Magnum Mills, if that wasn't enough, she then hits Carl with a little nugget of truth. That nugget is that his father was Jewish. Carl has absolutely nothing to say in response. I mean, that was just getting slapped with a girthy meat stick right across the face, and there is nothing you can do to respond.
And once again, Ada is basically the shining beacon of light in an otherwise dark episode, both in how she goes out and just handles those Nazis, and here how she does not hesitate to just put her own son in his place, because she knows that's what he fucking needs, because she don't want him to be no goddamn Nazi.
Hell no. She shut that shit down right quick. Loved it. Loved the stones on her. Great scene. Again, you're right. She was the lighthouse in this storm of an episode. The next day, Magnum Mills, we see Tommy typing up his report to Churchill on his typewriter. Lizzie comments that that's the same typewriter that Tommy gave her years ago. Lizzie attempts to give Tommy a letter from the doctor, but he pays it no mind. Lizzie asks why he didn't come to bed last night. Tommy claims that he needed to type his report to Churchill right away. He admits to burning Ruby's chair and tells Lizzie that he is going to change for the good, but not just yet. Not just yet, Lizzie.
I think this does also speak to just the power of Tommy Shelby, that again, probably another night without sleep. This is maybe 4 or 5 days. Like, this is not healthy for you. And he's having trouble doing everything, but he can still manage to type up this report for Churchill. And also he's typing it specifically because if he does it quick enough, he can remember basically what everyone said word for word, just to show you just how smart he is. And that despite everything going on, he's still doing his Tommy Shelby shit there. And I think this scene is also probably about as close as he and Lizzie come to actually really connecting. Like, it does seem like for a minute, they maybe they're kind of going to get there. And it doesn't quite seem that they can't seem to get, to grieve together.
Not yet. Back at his office, we see Tommy answer the phone, and what he hears surprises him. We cut to an apartment where we see Mosley and Gina finishing up in bed. Whew. Tommy walks up to the apartment and Gina answers the door. Tommy tells her that he saw Mosley leave and he knows that Mosley keeps the apartment for encounters with women. Tommy tells Gina that he won't tell Jack or Michael if she spies on Mosley when he meets with the Germans and reports back to Tommy on the happenings. He asks Gina what his intentions are for him. Gina says that he just wants to complete their deal and then they'll both walk away. Tommy gives a short laugh and leaves. Gina, knowing she messed up so badly, lets out a well-deserved fuck.
A little salty because I think this probably ends the chances of Tommy banging Gina. So that's a prediction off the table for me. He also had his first drink and it didn't wind up with him having relations with one of the women involved here. So, you know, and I think that it kind of good too. We don't really need to add anything else on top of the pile at this point. As fun as it would be, you'd have to believe at this point, if he did sleep with Gina or something, it would be basically to get at Michael or for a strategic standpoint from Uncle Jack. Now that he's got some good old fashioned blackmail, I think he's good. I don't think he has to. You know, again, if he did, I think it would be strictly just specifically to rub it in Michael's face, which again, I suppose it's not completely off the board, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, part of me is like, okay, could they be double Eskimo brothers and that they both slept with Lizzie and now Gina? Maybe. Would it be like him doing to Mosley? But then it would be better if he did that with Diana. So yeah, I think it's off the table. Magnum Mills, we go back to his office and we see Tommy finishing a drink and he slides the empty glass over and finally opens the letter from the sanatorium. Says that the doctor needs to speak to him and will visit in Tommy's earliest convenience. Tommy seems taken aback by this. Magnum Mills, I gotta say, man, I thought this was really cool shot, you know, very, very well done, where he sets the glass down and then you look at it through the camera angle switches to through the glass and you can see the letter underneath. He slides the glass over again from an aerial viewpoint from the viewer standpoint, and there's a letter. And I like when he opened this letter up, how the words that you wanted to pay attention to became bigger and bolder and kind of popped off. I thought that was pretty cool how they did that.
I like that too, and I wondered why they were doing it. I guess it could just be creative license, and I also wondered too if that's just kind of how Tommy's seeing things now, like, you know, with the having the growth or whatever. That's, you know, we've seen the seizures and the hallucinations or something. Maybe that's how he's seeing things now. I don't, you know, pretty striking. Again, like this gave you the sense of dread, right? It's kind of like, oh boy, here we go in an episode where we've already had, you know, this isn't really fun at all. Like, what are they going to hit us with now? There's no way. What is, you going to have another kid? You know, what could possibly happen at this point? And that brings us into, you know, the scene that has to happen next logically. And that's where Tommy meets with the doctor. Dude, it's, you know, it's just the next day. It's light out. The doctor arrives to see Tommy, and Tommy he's really not happy with this. He's annoyed that this doctor had to meet with him. Yeah, doctor says, hey, you might want to take a seat. Tommy's like, fuck no, I don't have time to take a seat. The doctor takes out the x-rays we saw Tommy get and says that while they didn't find any tuberculosis, they found something else related to his daughter's illness. He tells Tommy that he has tuberculoma on his brainstem, which is a growth caused by the same bacteria as TB, and Tommy may have picked it up from Ruby. The doctor asks if Tommy has been suffering seizures, hallucinations, which we know he has been. The doctor tells Tommy that while tuberculoma is not contagious, in Tommy's case, it is inoperable. No doctor will operate on him because it would be futile. Tommy asks the doctor how bad it will get. The doctor informs him as the tumor grows, symptoms will get worse and worse, and eventually Tommy will need to be surrounded by loved ones as he will need constant care. Tommy asks him how long he has. At that point, Lizzie enters the room, and Tommy tells Lizzie that the doctor is actually his accountant, and he is just leaving. As he leaves, the doctor/accountant tells Tommy that he has a year, maybe 18 months. Lizzie asks if it was something serious, and Tommy replies that it was just a bill that he wasn't expecting, and he'll have to pay it. He asks Lizzie to give him a minute by himself. When alone, Tommy comments to himself that he's not the devil, just an ordinary mortal man.
In an episode that brought us a bunch of booms, a bunch of jaw drop, this was the final mic drop. I mean, this has so many implications. It's not even funny. We now know that Tommy's only expected to live 12 to 18 months before he needs constant care and is incapable of doing anything. I mean, this is wild, bro. We also saw he has no intention of telling Lizzie or his family. And just the way he handles this news, all he cared about was, is it long enough to do what he has to do? As if nothing else matters except completing this one last mission.
I mean, like the man said, one more road to cross, one more move to make. And yeah, I mean, you knew this was going to be bad. Not a victory lap here because it kind of sucks, but I actually kind of predicted basically something like this, that Tommy's seizures and everything would be related to Ruby's thing or whatever. Well, there was something environment, and in this case, it wasn't Tommy causing Ruby to get sick. It was the other way around. This is, again, like Marty McFly said, man, this is some heavy shit, dude.
It really is. And how wild is it that you can kind of trace back all of this to Grace and the sapphire necklace? I mean, it's just so crazy that this has come back, because that essentially is what caused the curse to go to Ruby. And then now it's transferred over to Tommy. And I know that it's consumption and it's probably not some gypsy curse shit, but I think there's enough there to where you gotta say, I can connect the dots here a little bit, and it's symbolic in a way how it's all tied together. And the title of this episode was Sapphire. I know Tommy goes into the woods like a maniac and says he's here on behalf of the Blue Sapphire and mows down people with his gun. But I also think there's something to this a little bit too. I mean, this was just somber, dude, is the way I could describe it. I mean, this is just, you think about like the Breaking Bad scene where Walt finds out he's got cancer and there's nothing they can do about it. And he's hyper focused on the mustard stain of the doctor's t-shirt, not t-shirt, his dress shirt. He's got a mustard stain, and Walt he really doesn't care about the news that he's being told because he's focused on the mustard stain. In this one, Tommy really isn't all in and on the, like, it's not that he's afraid of the news. It's that he's focused on, is it enough time for him to do what he has to do? And it's just fascinating how people take news like that. I mean, that's just, how would you take that, dude? I mean,
we kind of see how Tommy ultimately takes it here. And, you want to do this last little bit here, Jamie, because this is something that was one of your predictions, but we missed it last episode, but we get it again here to end the episode.
Absolutely. And we end the episode with Tommy hearing Polly again saying, there will be a war in this family and one of you will die. Tommy asks her to give him enough time to do what he needs to do. The voice of Polly replies by repeating the word kill. Crazy, eerie shit, bro.
I don't, what would be the Jeff Foxworthy equivalent of, you might be a gypsy or whatever. I don't have any really good gypsy jokes, but, again, I do, like you said, the keeping the kind of the spirit of Polly around the gypsy influence is obviously heavily in here. And now, again, if you're going to bring his, half gypsy son, or I guess, full gypsy son, but, a child who's basically been living that, his whole life around the gypsies, I think you're going to see, even more of that element kind of, injected back into the show as we hit, holy shit, the last two episodes. Like you said, man, it's one of those things. It's a very good episode, but a very kind of hard episode to watch. And despite the quality of it, it's probably not one that I will go back and rewatch on its own or something. If I'm doing a rewatch of the series someday, I'm not going to skip it or anything, but it's probably not going to be one, I would go to watch or tell someone, hey, you want to get a Peaky Blinders, go ahead and watch this episode. Obviously that'd be spoiling up, but and we're about to hand out some hardware here. Before we do that, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to discuss?
Not really, Magnum Mills. I think we kind of covered everything in detail here. I mean, like you said, it's almost a shame in a way, because it was a work of art, this episode, but it was so somber and sad and tough to deal with. And like, let's not forget, dude, we've invested some time, some energy. I care for Tommy Shelby. Like, I don't, I don't want to see Ruby die. Like, these are things where it's like, man, like, I hate seeing Arthur be in the shell of himself. Like, it sucks, but I hurt for Lizzie. I mean, she's grieving basically on her own without her husband and her support system. I mean, it's just, shit's tough out there for the Peaky Blinders family, Magnum Mills.
And one thing that I think I just neglected to mention kind of during the opening funeral scene there is when Tommy talks about the last lesson that Ruby ever taught him, and that's that you never know what's going to be coming down the river. And again, just kind of hit us over the head with that foreshadowing there that Tommy says that in an episode where You know, he gets hit by the ultimate thing coming down the fucking river, the goddamn Grim Reaper in a form of a tuberculoma. And I just want to comment that Diana is also she's just the worst. And I give her credit, pair of balls on that fucking lady. And I mean that in the, like, she is not afraid to let her to be her one true self. It's just that her true self is the fucking worst.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, her that's
like they just took like the Nazi button, you know, it goes up to 100 and they like put on pencil and wrote like 120 or something under it and then kept cranking the dial.
Oh, they cranked it.
Like, she is just like, you know, like a Nazi and like a cartoon level Nazi. It is just,
yeah, dude. I mean, they
that's what they're
the dial
going
until
for, and
broke.
it's very like
the knob broke, and now it's off the charts, and they can't turn it down.
I'm hoping it's because she dies in some horrible fashion, and they don't want to get in trouble for like killing some lady in some horror. So everyone is just, no matter how she dies, everyone's basically just going to be like, yeah.
You'll cheer for her. I mean, the scene in this one, the way she talks about Jewish people, it's. I don't even want to repeat it. It was horrible. It was a bad visual, and it was like, my.
If she survives this season, I'll be very unhappy.
Same.
I'm usually
I was very unhappy. Mostly,
I'm never like you need to die. Like, she needs to go.
Yeah, she's the worst, bro. But she is powerful, and she's got.
She definitely wearing the pants in the relationship with her and Mosley. She has the hand. She has the hand in the pants. Yeah, she's got the hand in the pants, wearing the pants.
Yeah, both hands in both pockets of the pants for sure. Magnum Mills.
Yeah, she spits with a hand in her pants like Al Bundy, man. That's how she rolls. Also,
anything else you want to touch on, bro? Or are we good?
I think those were my couple right there, really. I think that's probably about time to I don't know, talk about what our favorite piece of dialogue was, right?
Picking our favorite dialogue, trying to find a quote in an episode that was just chock full of them. This was kind of tough for me. I got a bunch of runner-ups, but as we sit here and do this, I'm going to start us off, and I'm picking one of the last ones in the episode. And it's when Tommy just finishes up with the doctor, who he says is his accountant. He looks at Lizzie and he says, "Give me a minute alone, Lizzie, eh?" And she leaves, and he just takes a hit of his cigarette, and he says to himself, "Not a devil, just an ordinary mortal man." That was just so incredibly powerful to me, because this whole season started off with him having no limitations. And every time he turns his back, he's got another limitation slapping him across the face. And now the ultimate one. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't been afraid of death, but you got to believe somewhere deep down inside, he didn't believe he was going to die, because he's gotten out of it so many times. This was just, it was chilling. It was almost like he was relieved. This was a really big moment for me, and an episode that was filled with great dialogue. That one took first place for me, Magnum Mills.
You know, and it's funny because mine came from right around in there. I was worried you were going to take the same one, but you didn't. And you know, just a couple of runners up here. Obviously, like, you know, we talked about earlier when Tommy talks about like we didn't afford ourselves a luxury because gold doesn't work at the in the funeral scene. You know, and then when Tommy is trying to get it together to go into the big meeting, he just keeps repeating himself, "The agenda is in my head." Like, you could tell he hasn't slept. He's trying to keep it together. And it was the line that made me say, you know, the big balls on Diana, when she just, you know, when they talk about putting a word in the president's ear, and she's just like, "Tell him we are England." Like, fuck you, bitch. You're a whole country now, huh? And, you know, Uncle Jack got one good dig in there when he's like, "You ride with hounds, Mr. Mosley. Will you hunt communists?" I like that one. But mine for me was the same thing at the end of the scene with the doctor at the very end, where Tommy, you know, Lizzie asks, like, "Oh, you know, what was that? Was it a big deal?" And Tommy just says, no, just a bill I wasn't expecting, and I'll have to pay it." And that's him accepting his limitations right there, that he thought he didn't have them. He does. And in fact, they wrote it on the paper, and, you know, that is going to be due sooner than later.
Incredible scene. And yeah, man, it can't go wrong with picking those two. Now it is time to pick our favorite moment or scene from the episode. I'll go first on this one. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I got to go to Tommy and Arthur in the basement. This scene was just so cool. Again, having brothers, man. Tommy just had the worst day of his life. He just buried Ruby. He loses his mind. He goes and he murders people trying to avenge her death. Realize that doesn't work. He finds out he's got a kid that's freaking, you know, a teenager out there in the world that he doesn't know about. then he comes home and, Lizzie's breaking down. And then there's Arthur. And it was almost like in all that crazy shit going on in the world, having a drunk, doped out Arthur on our basement floor, that's probably the best thing he's got right now. I mean, think about his day. And so he goes down there, it's his brother. And I just love how they did this. He sits a little bit far away from him and he brings up that Arthur never had a chance. You were fucked from the beginning. Because if you remember, and then he tells a story about how when he was 9 and Arthur was 11, he gave him a beating and he got him one time too many. And it sparks Arthur. And Arthur says, no, but that was actually a tie. And they go back and forth with that for a little bit. And Tommy presses further and he does it in a very cool way to kind of rib him a little bit here. And I mean, this is Arthur fucking Shelby. You don't talk to him that way, So it was cool to kind of see him getting a little bit of life out of Arthur here. And then he goes over and he asks Arthur what he's doing. He sits closer to him. And Arthur goes, I'm waiting for this cup to fill up. And he's just drip dropping wine in this cup. And then he tells him, and he gets sentimental on him about how he realized that he won that day because Arthur wanted him to win. And after that, Arthur's wanted him to win at everything. And that Arthur will get better because his family needs him. And it was powerful, bro. Such a cool scene. We do see Tommy finally wet his whistle and take a sip. I'll admit, I thought for sure his first drink would be whiskey, Irish, but I did not see wine coming. That was a cool little curveball. I would have lost the prop bet on that for sure. But this scene was awesome, dude. Absolutely awesome. And it gave me a little bit of faith that maybe it worked. That's why I was so disappointed during that montage when like Arthur weirds out and he goes in there and he steals all the drugs and he's running, he falls in the puddle. First I was like, is he going to burn down the opium den? Because he's so mad. He's like, I'm never doing this dope again. But no, he was just basically stealing it to just like, yeah. But awesome scene with Tommy and Arthur in the basement.
I agree. To be perfectly honest with you, that's the one I was leaning towards. Not going to double up there, but I will say I think a lot of the reason we like it is because it feels like a scene that could have been in a previous season or a little bit lighter. You actually see them have some of their better moments they've had in the past few episodes, so it's nice to see them connect on that level and not just basically be hating everything for a minute. And on that level, I'm going to go with my favorite scene or moment being the big meeting around the table, because it's just so over the top and it's done so well. Right down from, again, I think the montage was a little bit overused, but I like kind of the banner they had before Tommy comes down. And then you got the captain singing the song there. And then when they sit down, Tommy gets to kind of sit back because, he said the agenda's in his head and he just lets his plan play out. He's already had this all figured out. All he needs to do is not fuck it up. So he sits back, he does what he has to do, right down to doing a goddamn Nazi salute when it comes to it, because he might have, actual physical limitations, but at this point, he is going to, he's either going to complete this plan or he's going to die. And that's, now we know he's going to die anyway. So it's just that Ja Rule, that race against time, where he just has to get the plan done, before the, proverbial 0 hour. Ticking clock is always kind of a good thing for, a show to have. So this isn't quite 24, but it definitely means these last 2 episodes are basically just going to have to be jammed to the fucking gills. And I hope they pay it off here. And that's it. That brings us to the big award, dude. The big one, the big P, the Master P, the most valuable Peaky, who made us go the most this week. It's my turn to go first here. And obviously when I'm looking at the breakdowns of the scene, you see Tommy with. It would be real easy to take Tommy Shelby here. I wouldn't fault you for it, but I'm going to go off the board a little bit, and I'm going to go with my kind of a group MVP. And my MVPs are all the doctors at the sanatorium. You know how hard these people work to tell Tommy this? Like, they tried to get him at the thing, he wouldn't listen. They called him, he wouldn't listen. They sent a letter, he wouldn't listen. They said, they didn't say like come in and see. They sent a dude to his house at his earliest convenience. Like, that is the doctor taking their Hippocratic oath to the fullest extent. Those doctors went out of their way, because if they just given up, Tommy would have just had the shit keep happening to or whatever. Like, this was his personal physician, who also got involved, and he wouldn't even tell him that he was having all this shit going wrong with him. So Tommy probably doesn't get to complete his plan if these doctors don't go out of their way to tell him about his condition. So I got to give it up. My MVP goes to all the doctors who finally got Tommy Shelby to fucking listen for 5 minutes.
The most valuable Peakies, Magnum Mills. I mean, you had me at an outstanding.
You could say most valuable physicians, but
most valuable physicians, absolutely. But you did have me. It was such a great Ja Rule reference. And then as soon as I took a sip of my beer, I get another amazing Master P reference. I mean, a 2-for-1 with Magnum Mills right here on the PBP Peaky Blinders podcast. Mills, I am going to take the bait. I'm going to stuff the chalk in my mouth and eat it. And eat it. I will. I'm taking Tommy. How can I not take Tommy as my MVP? He is the most valuable Peaky. It's everything that he does. It's every scene that he's in. It's the raw emotion. It's the face work. It's fucking everything. The guy's Tommy Shelby, dude. I love the guy. He just, can you imagine this episode without him? I mean, I just don't know how much more this guy can take. I'm worried for him. I can't wait to see these final 2 episodes. I think it's just, this was a big bomb, a huge episode. It's unbelievable all that happened in this episode. I'm still digesting it, Magnum Mills, and I've watched the episode 3 times and I'm still digesting it. I mean, this is just crazy. I'm giving it up to Tommy, bro.
Again, dude was in every scene, carried this episode, which was crazy, heavy, emotional, with a ton of new plot development. I mean, this is like, this is something to be surprised, like halfway through season 3 or something. Like this was a huge episode, and obviously, Cillian Murphy does it extremely well. And I think that's why some people don't like it, because it's hard to watch, but that's by design.
Yes, it is, Magnum Mills. Before we hand out them red right hands, baby, and grade this thing, let's talk a little predictions, Magnum Mills, on the PBP right here on the Peaky Blinders podcast. As you said, we have 2 episodes left to wrap up this incredible series, Peaky Blinders, with season 6 coming to its conclusion in 2 more episodes. Bro, feels like a lot of shit, dude. So like throw a dart and you'll probably get one right, because a lot of shit's got to happen here, right? I mean, come on. How many storylines have we got open right now?
Part of me wants to do something ridiculous, like Arthur mixes all of the drugs together and creates some sort of like super soldier serum or something like that. But we can't go full Marvel, although that would be really fun. So I'm going to start with a random prediction. Like, we didn't see the boy Hayden Stagg again, played by Stephen Graham. We didn't see Alfie again. I'm going to say we get a scene with those 2 together in the last 2 episodes. Somewhere they have a big scene, and you get to see Stephen Graham, fucking Tom Hardy, fucking chew the scenery. Maybe Tommy's there, maybe he's not. I think that's going to happen. So I'll ask you this, Jamie G, gun to your special agent Johnson. How many of these, with 2 episodes left, how many do we see Alfie in, and how many do we see Hayden Stagg in?
We see Hayden Stagg in 3 scenes. We see Alfie in only 1 more.
So you think we see Stagg in both episodes left, or just 1?
I think in both.
Yeah, I think the same thing. We get Alfie 1 episode, Stagg in 2. Again, it's, Tom Hardy, you get why they have limited availability, but you don't cast Stephen Graham here, and only use him that little bit there. And I guess another one here to talk about is we have Duke, I guess Shelby now. Maybe he has another last name, but it's obviously going to be Duke Shelby. Do you think he plays any kind of role in the last 2 episodes of this season, or do you think he's a character they're going to just pretty much just bring back in for the movies or a possible spinoff show?
Magnum Mills, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I am going to say that Duke Shelby plays a role at the end of this, and somehow, some way is there for whatever happens with Tommy at the end.
Maybe he's the one who bangs Gina, and then he kills Michael. And he's in with Gina. He's just new Michael. Like, they even just start calling him new Michael or something like that. That would.
I mean, he's no Duke Ellington, but he is Duke. And something tells me he's going to be back this season. I just can't imagine they drop a huge fucking storyline like that and we don't see him at least 1 more time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they have another Shelby sibling that they just completely ignore to the point we're not even sure if he was at Ruby's funeral, or this it's not like they already had 1 Shelby they didn't know what to do with, who was also very young. I feel like we got to do something with Ada here, because she is in full boss bitch mode, and yeah. I just feel like somehow at the end, like, she has to play a big role here. Like, you know, like even if it's like, you know, Tommy thinks it's going to be him and Arthur that has to do a big thing or something like that, and it winds up being Ada and maybe Lizzie are the ultimately the ones who have to, you know, bring the plan to completion or deal with some unforeseen circumstance or something like that. So I think, you know, Ada is going to play a big role in however this wraps up, and that somehow maybe she kind of gets Lizzie into it, and that's how Lizzie starts to rally back a little bit or something.
Yeah, love it. I will also say that one of the two, either Mosley and or Diana, is going to die before the end of this season. I don't know
Who kills Diana. That's what I wanted. Who gets to kill Diana?
It's got to be Tommy, right? I mean,
I think go. See, I wanted some fun, like Ada or Lizzie killing her would be fun.
Or the IRA chick, like that.
Gina,
might be...
yeah, I could see the IRA chick doing it, like Captain Swing there, but yeah, I mean Gina would be fun. Uncle Jack. There's a lot of fun ones. Or you know what? Maybe she bangs Tommy and then Mosley finds out he like strangles her or something like that. Well, maybe a little murder suicide or something. I mean, Mosley seems like he might be into the murder suicide. He seems kind of creepy like that.
I mean, he doesn't seem. He is creepy for
and
sure.
He's got a whole sex apartment. I mean, I guess that's, you know, depends on, you know, it could be a cool thing if used correctly, but it doesn't seem like, you know, I don't know. I don't really, he seems kind of seedy. I don't really, you know, again, he hunting with hounds and willing to lay with the fascists. So it probably would not be, you know, fucking with the Mosley too much. Jamie G, do we see Michael next week? Finally, it's been a minute.
Man, part of me wants to think we will, because we just had Gina cheat on him and commit adultery with Mosley of all people. But I'm going to stick to my guns here and say we do not see Michael until the final episode. Michael essentially spends all season in jail.
I think we get a little, you know, to keep the 90s hip hop reference, we get a little CNN, a little component, or a little phone time. I think we get like one scene where he's talking to Gina from jail or something like that, but we don't get any in-person action with him until the sixth and final episode here. And who knows, at this point, maybe that doesn't even get settled to a movie or something. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts going on here. So, you know, I don't really have much more here other than, do you think that we kind of go back to Boston at some point, or are we going to kind of stick over in England? You know, I don't think Peaky would, you know, given a show that's really been set entirely in, you know, in Europe, that they would all of a sudden kind of move that much to the finale to America, but it does seem that that's where the action is a bit. So
I don't know that
they talk about Gina going to Germany, so
it could potentially, it could potentially shift to Europe, but I don't see it going to America, at least not with this show. Maybe the movie, I don't see it. I guess the one thing I got to ask you, Magnum Mills, I'm going to address it. I'm going to call it out right here, right now on the Peaky Blinders podcast. Does Tommy Shelby die at the end of this series, or does he make it to the movie?
Makes it to the movie.
Makes it to the movie.
I'm saying that from a business standpoint. They need him to make it to the movie, kind of. Maybe I'm wrong.
That means we're not going to see the huge time jump from the end of the season.
Yeah, we probably don't get like the end of World War II or whatever. So, and I just wanted to be clear with what you said before. Like, you were okay with the Peakies coming to America once, but coming to America 2 was just a bridge you didn't want to cross.
I can't go back to Coming to America 2. It was the worst 97 minutes of my life, at least one of them. Magnum Mills, we got a bunch of predictions. We talked through this one. Boy, oh boy, was it a bear. I mean, we really went through it with episode 4 of Peaky Blinders season 6. I think it's time to give out them red right hands, baby. For me, Magnum Mills, obviously, I love this episode. Like, it's so good, but it's hard to watch. I also thought that the storyline of Duke, I just didn't need it. That now it feels like they have to do something with it. Otherwise, I'm going to be disappointed with that. Tommy's medical news, while it was a massive, stunning thing, it almost feels like maybe it's just because I didn't want to see that happen. Part of me wanted Tommy to complete this last mission, do his good in the world, and sail off in the sunset. And I guess that was just unrealistic. That was just me being whimsical and wanting to live in a fucking fairyland. Thanks, Disney and everything else. But it doesn't look like we're going to get that. I thought that maybe that it just, again, it adds another massive thing to try to tie up loose ends here with 2 episodes to go. And then lastly, wasn't a huge, massive fan of the montages. Just felt like 1 or 2 too many here. They were good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's no, short circuit Johnny Five running along canal side listening to I Need a Hero. no. But it was good in terms of the montages. Just felt like maybe there was one too many. I'm going to probably give this thing my lowest grade of the season, which doesn't feel right, but I think I kind of have to. I'm going to give this thing an 87.5, 8.75 red right hands. That's almost 9 fingers, but not close. I'm still looking for the man with 9 fingers who killed my father, but that's what it is, Magnum Mills.
Prepare to die. And
Prepare to die.
Shout out Princess Bride. And yeah, dude, I'm kind of going back and forth. And again, what I really come down to when I'm grading is kind of what do I like? And then, I try to start out at a higher grade and then kind of knock for stuff that I don't like here. And I think this is an episode where there's a lot of things that are well done and I like how they did them. I just don't like the outcomes at all. Like almost nothing is happening in this episode that makes me happy, with the exception of the scene between Tommy and Arthur and Ada like pulling a gun on some Nazis and getting one over on her Nazi loving kid. Like other than that, there's just not a lot of anything you can get any joy from in this episode. I don't want to bag it for that. So I was floating right about in that, kind of where I kind of live in this. And I started like an 8.5 range and I was down about an 8.4, but then I decided, dude, you not only do you throw in a kid out of nowhere, you don't show the other fucking Shelby brother Finn that you already have, and then you give our main character inoperable brain cancer, basically. I gotta knock you like a half a grade for that, because that's a lot of tropes all in one, and Peaky's been pretty good about either picking and choosing when to use tropes or how to subvert them. Here I think it's just a little bit, to again paraphrase BoJack Horseman, that's too much, man. So I'm going to drop this down to a 7.6. Hey, it's still good. But again, and I think it also comes to is that because it is such a heavy episode, I don't think there's a lot of rewatchability to it. If there didn't, it would feel almost like filler, except for so much crazy shit happened in it. We talked about a time jump because there was a way you could kind of skip maybe the funeral and the big meeting and just deal with it in a couple of lines and see how people are dealing with that later on, but we chose to go right through it head on, but it's not enough to just deal with that. We have to deal like with all these other things that are just happening. And, we don't even, like I said, get into like the Gina fucking Mosley of it all. Like we kind of just yada yada that. I mean, that's how much stuff happened this episode.
Man,
so,
oh
7.6, not my greatest grade, but again, it's still a good episode of Peaky. Can't complain about it at all. And it's one of those things. Any Peaky's good Peaky, right? It's kind of like good news, bad news. And because I'm that dude, like to rip off the band-aid, just going to start with the bad news. We've already mentioned it, but there are only 2 episodes left of season 6 of Peaky Blinders. Just like that. Good news, we only have to wait 1 week for the next episode. The next episode is titled The Road to Hell. So buckle up, I guess. It airs Sunday, March 27th at 9 p.m. on BBC One. Plot summary for the episode is, in light of the extraordinary personal revelations, Tommy takes a course of action that will change everything. Meanwhile, his enemies' plans start to fall into place. So it feels like this is going to be one of those episodes, the penultimate episode where we put our heroes back to the wall. It sounds like things could get even worse for Tommy before they can possibly get better.
Yes, it does. Man, oh man, that one sounds like another one to, I'm going to have to mentally and emotionally prepare, just like I did this past week. So the good news is, though, I have to see what happens here. I mean, I'm chomping at it. Watching this thing, one per week, Magnum Mills, I got to say, I haven't done this in a while. And, we're so used to binging shit and just going right to the next one. This one forces you to really kind of live with it and think about it and see it when you kind of over and over again in your head as you wait 7 days to watch it. I mean, it's pretty wild. So Magnum Mills, I have to thank the people for watching, listening, doing all that good shit. And, look, this is the Peaky Blinders podcast. We're all about the Peaky, but we also got a bunch of other amazing shit that we do, and it's all free. My main man, Magnum Mills, will tell you where you can find all of it right now, right here on the Peaky Blinders podcast.
And that's it, man. This is PBP, a Peaky Blinders podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching for PBP, Peaky Blinders. Find us on social media at Peaky Podcast. We're from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com and on social media at Joe Blow Show. We also have a show where we talk about fantasy football, dynasty football, wagering, bettering, DFS, all that good stuff. That's Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. Find that on your favorite podcast platform by searching for Seize the Gap Fantasy and on social media at Seize the Gap FF. I'm Magnum Mills. This is Jamie G. Thank you again for checking us out. And all we need you to do is remember that everybody has a plan.
Until they get hit with that red right hand. This has been PBP, a Peaky Blinders podcast presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. We are not in any way affiliated with Peaky Blinders, BBC Studios, or Netflix. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Any views or opinions expressed here are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations who may or may not be associated with the Joe Blow Football Show. If you have any questions, please contact us at peakyblinderspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. By order of the Peaky fucking Blinders.
Super Arthur on drugs. I'm calling it. He just does all the drugs and kills everybody. We win. Yay.
I wouldn't be mad about that at all, dude. Arthur just
Like
turns
some
into
Scarface
a super-
level. He just puts it all in a big pile and just hoovers it up and just he comes out with like he's got, you know, like the Terminator guns from like 2020, no explanation or whatever. He's just got the fucking robot guns and just Arthur's just spraying. I'm there for it, dude.